Sixth grade lesson 11.5 is fractions and volume. We get to review our practice with fractions. Also, we're talking about volume. Volume is about how much you will fill up a three-dimensional object. So if I had a rectangular prism, how much water, let's say, would fill that up. Volume is about how much it is to fill up a three-dimensional shape. So it's a three-dimensional result. So you'll have units to the third power as your final answer. This lesson starts off by talking about a 1 cubic box. So if I had 1 cubic box where it's 1, 1, and 1, it's helping us understand that how this relates in fraction form. And if I have a box that is 1 cubic unit all the way around, and I needed to fill it with half unit cubes inside of there, it's asking us how many of those half unit cubes would fit inside of that. And so you can kind of picture, if you're good at picturing things, that I'd have 4 on the bottom and 4 on the top. I'm sorry about my drawing. It's terrible. But you'd have 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top, for a total of 8 cubes, 8 half unit cubes fitting inside of a 1 unit cube. So as we're dealing with fractions, what you would be able to recognize is that if I'm dealing with a fraction and they give me the total value of a box, a rectangular prism, I could divide by the 8 half unit cubes to find out how much is in there. And so you'll see a couple of the practice problems in there. In fact, let's look at their practice problem first. Okay, so we have this jewelry box has a length of 3.5 units, a width of 1.5 units, and a height of 2 units. What is the volume of the box in cubic units? We're going to set that kind of on the side and focus on just this 1 by 1 by 1 cube. This is much better drawn than my drawing just now. And then you have these little half cubes inside. You can picture it a little bit better that 4 of these half cubes would fit on the bottom and 4 more on top for a total of 8. How many cubes with the side lengths of 1/2, these little pink ones, does it take to form a full unit cube? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each smaller cube represents how much of a unit cube? It would represent 1/8 of a unit cube. So then they want us to cut out the net, fold it up. You're welcome to do that. Tape the net into a rectangular prism, leave one open face so you can pack the prism with the little half cubes. And so that might help you visualize it better. If you're having trouble visualizing that, you can cut that out. How many cubes does the side length of 1/2 fit into the prism? 8 of them will fit in there. So knowing that, if it's just the 1 cube that 8 of these little half cubes fit into, then if we want to find the volume of the jewelry box in cubic units, we can determine how many unit cubes we could make from the smaller cubes you use to pack the prism. So if I were to pack half unit cubes into a length of 3.5, well, to make 3 full, I would need 6 halves. So it would be 6 plus the 1/2 is a length of 7 of those unit cubes. To make 1.5, the full 1 is 2 halves. With 1 more half, that's 3 half unit cubes. And then to make the 2 units in depth, to make 2 full units, I would need 4 halves. And I can go ahead and multiply for length times width times height. For volume, volume is length times width times height. I will get 21 times 4, which is 84. So if I wanted to find the fractional value of it, I would go ahead and take that full 84 and divide it by 8. Remember, because 8 half cubes fit in there, so we've got to bring them back down. So 84 divided by 8 is going to be 10 with a remainder of 1, or 10 and 1/2, we would call that. So the volume of the jewelry box is 10.5 cubic units. That's kind of showing you the visual of that, but you can simply use your calculations for length times width times height if you preferred that. Extension of that was, could you use that method of packing cubes to find the volume of a triangular prism? If we are looking at a triangular prism, remember that a triangle is half of a quadrilateral. So as long as we have all of equal sides and we're looking at that same cube extended, we fit 8 into that cube. So in order to do the triangular one, we'd cut it in half. So you would fit 4 into the cube. 4 of that half-inch cubic units into the cube. And then going back to our cube from the previous page, where we learned it would take 8 half-unit cubes to fill 1 cube. If it took 8 to fill the 1 cube, 8 of the half-unit cubes, then how many would it take to form 3-unit cubes? So 3 of those, right? And it would be 8 times 3, or 24 unit cubes with a half-unit length. Okay, now that we've played with those half-unit cubes a little bit, let's go into finding the volume of that jewelry box. Remember, we talked about that jewelry box. And it had lengths of 3.5. So volume to fill up a rectangular prism is length times width times height. If you look back at the word problem on the jewelry box had a length of 3.5 units, a width of 1.5, and a height of 2 units. And so I really would just plug all those in and multiply them. Now, I know you're thinking, I'm sorry, that 1.5 is messy. Let me try that again. 1 and 1/2. Okay. So we just really have to dust off cobwebs. I know you're thinking, oh no, fractions, oh no. And I know they with a lot of you, it hangs you up a little bit. It's not an easy concept. It takes time, and over the years, you'll get better and better every time. The more you see it, the better you become, and the less worried you become when you see them. So let's go ahead and look at these and remember our steps for multiplying with fractions. First, we change them into fractions, and these are mixed numbers, and I need to change them into fractions. Remember, we did that by multiplying these two together, because I have 3 pizzas that are cut into half pieces. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's 6 half pieces. Plus the 1 from the 1/2 that was already here. So 6 plus 1 is 7. That is 7 halves. They did the same with this one already for us. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3 halves. The denominator stays the same. I can go ahead and leave that like that. I'm going to make it a fraction, though. If I'm multiplying fractions, I just go ahead and make everything a fraction. Put a 1 under it to make it a fraction. Whole numbers become fractions by just putting a 1 under it. Because 2 divided by 1 is still 2, right? All right. Multiply straight across. 7, I know usually we've been doing the cross reduction step, but they have us skipping that, and that's okay either way. 7 times 3 is 21, and 21 times 2 is 42. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 1 is 4. And now we have this improper fraction as our answer. We need to turn it back into a mixed number. Remember, we do that as a division problem. 42 divided by 4. The one that was out in the rain before gets in the house now. 42 divided by 4. 42 divided by 4. 4 fits into 4 once. Give me 0 left over. 4 does not fit into 2. I have to say so. I can't just leave it blank. I have to say it doesn't fit, and then I end up 0 times 4 is 0. I end up with 2 out of the 4 that I'm dividing left over. So I get 10 and 2/4. Now you're probably noticing 2/4 is reducible. 2 divides evenly into 2 and into 4. So we'll reduce that to get 10 and 1/2 cubic units as my volume. So in your share and show and your independent practice, you're going to see a couple of types of questions to practice, and then just use those skills that you have. The first type is that beginning part where it said a prism is filled with 38 cubes that have a side length of a half unit. So you have to dig back and remember that 1 unit cube can fit 8 of these half units inside of it. So if there's 38 of those half unit cubes inside of it, we can divide that by 8 to find out how many, what the volume of that is. So 38 divided by 8, oops, I'm in a different color. 8 times 4 is 32. And that leaves me with 6 out of 8 left over. So 4, 4, and 6 eighths. Now that 6 eighths is reducible. You're probably slowly but surely getting better and better at noticing when things need to be reduced. These are even numbers, so 2 divides evenly into both of these. 2 divides into 6 3 times. 2 divides into 4 4 times. So my answer will be 4 3/4 cubic units. So when faced with questions like these, where they give you the 38 little half cubes fit into the whole thing, you can find the volume that way. And the other types of questions you're going to get in this section is you're going to be given a rectangular prism with its measurements, and you can go ahead and use the formula for volume of a rectangular prism, length times width times height. Fill in the information. The length is 5.5. The width is 2. The height is 3. I've got this fraction going on here, so I'm going to multiply, add, I'm going to make all of these fractions so I can do the multiplication. So multiply here. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. That is 11 halves. Times, let's make 2 a fraction by putting a 1 under it, and let's make 3 a fraction by putting a 1 under it. Multiply straight across. I'm going to do these first. 3 times 2 is 6, and then 6 times 11 is 66. 2 times 1 is 2, times 1 more is 2. And 66 divided by 2. Remember, when we divide by 2, we're really just cutting things in half. So half of 66 is 33 units cubed as my volume. So those are the 2 styles of questions you're going to be asked in this lesson. So you'll remember, if they give you how many half cubes fit in, if I have this many half cubes fit in there, 8 half cubes fit into 1 unit cube, so you can divide by 8. Or if they give you a rectangular prism with measurements, you're doing length times width times height, and you just employ those skills with fractions. It's a good review for us on how to multiply with those fractions again. Dust off cobwebs, right? So take the time to let that sink back in again. Every time we see it over the next several years, the better we get at multiplying with fractions.